Brazil once ruled football, 5 World Cups, countless legends, and a style of play that inspired the world. But today, many fans ask a painful question: what happened to Brazil? Good morning, guys, and welcome to Flop Files. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand how the ultimate footballing superpower found itself struggling to maintain its very soul, we're going to look at 5 key chapters: the golden era, the fracture, the talent exodus, the identity crisis, and finally, we have to ask, can the empire return? Section 1. The Golden Era. Look, before modern tactical rigidity completely took over the sport, Brazil's baseline greatness actually sprouted right in the streets and the favelas. That unstructured, tight space environment, that's exactly what forged their unparalleled raw skill. And that unique environment forged an absolute global dynasty. Let's trace this timeline. It starts in 1958 when a 17-year-old kid named Pelé led them to their debut win, completely shattering rigid European tactics with pure spontaneity. Then came back-to-back glory in '62, largely thanks to the absolute genius of Garrincha. Jump to 1970, and we get what most people consider the perfect team, just dazzling the world in Mexico. After a bit of a dry spell, they clawed their way back to the top in '94 with Romario's lethal finishing, and finally cementing their legendary status as 5-time champions in 2002, an era totally defined by that magical, unstoppable trio, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho. At the absolute heart of all this success was Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game. But here's the thing, this wasn't just some tactical setup or coaching philosophy. It was a massive celebration of Brazilian national identity. The fluid, effortless dribbling, it mirrored the rhythm of samba. The acrobatics, the bicycle kicks, they echoed capoeira, the local martial art. Football literally flowed like art, elevating the sport way beyond mere competition. It was the soul of the nation right there on the pitch, allowing a developing country to project this undeniable brilliance that commanded universal respect. Section 2. The fracture. Because let's be honest, empires rarely just fall overnight. They usually crack under immense, unsustainable pressure. Fast forward to 2014. Brazil is hosting the World Cup for the first time since 1950. Off the pitch, the political climate was incredibly volatile. Huge protests were raging over the billions being dumped into stadiums, while public services were practically falling apart. So in this massive powder keg, winning the tournament on home soil wasn't just a goal, it became a near-religious mission. The national team stepped onto the pitch carrying the crushing psychological weight of an entire nation's expectations. Then came the night of July 8th, Belo Horizonte, the semifinal against Germany. Brazil goes in suddenly missing their emotional talisman, Neymar, as well as their defensive rock, Thiago Silva. And what happened next wasn't just a defeat, it was an absolute dismantling, 7-1. The nervous energy of the host nation just curdled into sheer panic within the first 30 minutes. Germany's cohesive pressing ruthlessly exploited every single tactical flaw. It was this perfect, terrible storm of psychological breakdown and total defensive collapse. As their head coach, Luis Felipe Scolari heartbreakingly put it, this was the worst loss by a Brazilian national team ever. He publicly took the blame, but man, the damage was irreversible. This wasn't merely a bad game. It was a deep cultural wound that everyone just calls the 7-1. It completely shattered the nation's self-confidence and brutally ended a 62-match unbeaten run at home. But more ominously, it acted as a glaring spotlight, exposing much deeper, systemic cracks in how Brazilian football was actually being managed. And this brilliantly illustrates how the trauma of that 7-1 defeat went way beyond the stadium walls. It bled heavily into the country's social and political consciousness. It became a powerful symbol, a catalyst that really intensified feelings of instability. The image of Brazil as this rising, confident global power just seemed to collapse in real time, right in front of a stunned global audience. The national team, which had always been the ultimate unifier for the country, was fractured, leaving fans totally grappling with a profound crisis of national identity. Which brings us to Section 3, the talent exodus. Because as the national team was reeling, a quieter but honestly just as devastating economic crisis was happening domestically. See, in the past, players developed in Brazil. They stayed long enough to actually build deep, emotional connections with the local fans, forging a shared history before finally moving abroad as finished products. Present day, it's a totally different story. Teenagers are being sold to Europe before they even turn 18, practically raised in foreign academies. Brazilian clubs constantly battling crazy debt have basically morphed from development centers into temporary warehouses for Europe's elite.
I mean, just look at these numbers. We are seeing unproven teenagers being transferred for staggering fees. Endrick heading to Real Madrid for over 60 million euros. Estevao to Chelsea for 34 million. Vitor Roque to Man City for 40 million. These kids carry the insane weight of massive price tags, shipped overseas just to stabilize their local club's finances for a couple of years. It's a continuous, highly organized drain of top-tier talent. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to Flop Files and share this video with a football fan.
Section 4. The Identity Crisis. Because we really have to ask ourselves about the profound human and cultural cost of this endless export market. So the crucial point is, when you take a 16-year-old out of that raw, expressive Brazilian street football environment and immediately plug them into a rigid European tactical system, something fundamental is lost. That spontaneous jinga, that creative spark that defined Brazil, is slowly being suppressed in favor of tactical compliance. And it creates this devastating cascade. Because stars leave before they're 18, European academies inevitably iron out the Jogo Bonito. We're already seeing the alarming results, like the U20 squad getting knocked out early in 2025. Back home, fans feel completely disconnected from a team made up of European-based players who barely know the local league. And for years, this total lack of cohesion led to a desperate singular over-reliance on Neymar, who frankly just couldn't carry the burden of a broken talent pipeline all by himself. Contemporary Brazil just doesn't converge around a single image of itself on the pitch anymore. That fiery passion that used to bring the whole country to a standstill during a World Cup, for a lot of people, it's been replaced by apathy and polarization. The players don't share a domestic history or a local narrative with the fans anymore. They are Brazilian by birth, but European by footballing identity. The unifying power of that famous yellow jersey has been deeply, deeply fragmented. Section 5. Can the empire return? Because right now, Brazilian football is standing at a massive existential crossroads. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the perverse incentive at play here. Do they keep going down this incredibly profitable but soul-draining path of acting primarily as Europe's talent farm? Or do they attempt the incredibly difficult task of enforcing strict regulations, refusing to sell young players prematurely, and completely rebuilding their domestic league? The tragic irony is that the dream factory is slowly closing down because local clubs rely entirely on these early transfers literally just to avoid bankruptcy today. They are forced to sell their own future to survive. Europe isn't just buying players, they are buying the very essence of Brazilian football. Brazil's rich history shows us that the raw talent and passion for the game haven't completely vanished. But talent alone just isn't enough in the highly organized world of modern football. It's going to take massive institutional reform, a fierce commitment to local development, and the courage to break the cycle of early exportation. Brazil may no longer dominate world football, but its history remains unmatched. The question is not whether Brazil was great, the question is whether the football empire can rise again. Thanks for watching Flop Files.